It's with great honor and respect that I introduce you to our guest speaker tonight, Kwame Ture.
Well, we thank you for such a warm welcome. They tell me that Denver is now cold, but it's cold to me. So your warm welcome helps. We have to make some remarks this evening about history and seeing its use as a weapon. But before we begin a discussion of history and its use as a weapon, we need to discuss some of the cobwebs that we have in our minds that hold us back from thinking properly. You know, we live in a capitalist system, and not only does the system seek to rip off our labor and steal our resources, but it seeks to confuse the process of thinking. Actually, what it seeks to do is to make the people react to stimuli, and in the act of reacting, they think they are thinking. Of course, we have a purpose, and every action has a purpose. We do not mean to imply that the individual committing the action is aware of the purpose for the act, but every act has a purpose. You may, for example, ask some of your colleagues on the campus here, why did you come to school here? And they may, with all seriousness and all honesty, respond to you, But you cannot assume they came here for other reasons. All you can assume is this is an unconscious student, unaware of the reasons for being here. The world needs conscious men and women. And an oppressed people will never be free until they are conscious. Revolutionaries, of which I am a member, are more than conscious. Not only do we know the reasons for our actions, we come to effectuate the reasons for our actions, taking self-determination into our hands. We have a purpose then for coming here this evening. Our purpose is, in the first instance, to inspire each and every one of you to higher levels of activities of daily work to advance humanity. On the lowest level, we come to try and help to make you think. But we've told you to make people think in America is an extremely difficult job. And the difficulty arises, first of all, on the college campus. As a matter of fact, they will fill them with all sorts of bourgeois nonsense, letting them think that they can think abstractly, and the more they think abstractly, the more pure they think. They think they're thinking. You cannot think about anything unless you are involved in it. We say the problem begins in the first instance on the campus. I remember I'm sure they still give it to you in your elementary philosophy class. They tell you in Latin, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. But I am sure that all of us sitting in this room know that this is not true, because I'm certain all of us know many who are and do not think. So we must not get confused with the system. It will confuse us. We say you cannot think about anything unless you are involved in it. You are students. If you do not take physics, you cannot think about physics. Of course, you think about physics. But unless you take physics, you cannot think about physics. I know when you watch basketball, you will criticize every basketball player, but unless you play basketball, you cannot think about basketball. We must, in the very beginning, establish clear facts by smashing all lies of capitalism, by letting it be properly understood. One cannot think unless one is acting, because acting is part of thought, because thought is nothing other than the reflection of past action for the clarification of future action. If you are not involved in your people's struggle for freedom, If you are not working for your people's unity, if you are not working for the progress of your people, you cannot think of their unity, freedom, or progress. This fact must be properly understood, especially in the African community, because it's usually those who do nothing for the people that are prepared to give them the solutions at quicker time. We say confusion is the biggest enemy of an oppressed people. And those of us who struggle for the oppressed, anytime we hear confusion, we squash it quickly. We should have a law. If you don't work for the people when they're talking about the people, shut up. And we mean shut up in every vulgar sense, because you can cause confusion. The other day I saw such a man. Came, Brother Kwame, you know what our problem is? Don't help me, Jack. I've been out here a long time. Brother Kwame, our problem is that as a people, we lack leaders. We have a vacuum of leadership. Shut up. If you know nothing about these people, if you have no understanding of their history, you have heard the name of the great leaders which they have given to humanity in the last 100 years. If you know nothing about these people, you've heard about Frederick Douglass, you've heard about Harriet Tubman, you've heard about Sojourner Truth, you've heard about Booker T. Washington, you've heard about the Honorable Marcus Garvey, you've heard about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you've heard about Nelson Mandela, you've heard about Nkrumah, you've heard about Lumumba, you've heard about you've heard about, I almost said Patricia, you've heard about Rosa Parks, you've heard about Farrakhan, you've heard about Jesse Jackson, you've heard about Angela Davis, you've heard about Assata Shakur. As a matter of fact, if you know these people, it is not that they have too few leaders, their problem is they have too many leaders. We say unless you are working with the people, you will not understand the people, and you will be repeating what you've heard on television and think that you are thinking about the people's struggle. I remember some years ago at Atlanta University, Clark University, around Martin Luther King's birthday. You know how excited they get on the day of Martin Luther King's birthday? They really give off some steam. So I went to this, they invited me there to come and make some remarks about Martin Luther King. And I went, and it was all of them were just fired up. I mean, I didn't even have to walk in the room. They were just ready. I asked, how many of you love Martin Luther King? Every hand in the house went up. Some tried to reach the sky. Keep your hands up, said I, if you have read 2 books by Martin Luther King. They think they know King, but all they know is what the television tells them about King. Thus, we have to establish our first rule here tonight. If you don't work for the people and somebody is working for the people, is saying something about the people, if you don't agree with them, ignorance is not a basis for discussion. Shut up. This has to be done. I said we're having so many problems. But we who are revolutionaries are never pessimistic. We know the people are going to win their fight. We know this because in no way will we allow capitalism to confuse us on the understanding of human nature. Wherever people are oppressed, one will see they have an instinctive love of justice. Instinctive. This instinctive love of justice is not qualified by time. Capitalism would like to have us think that justice and the struggle for justice is a quantitative question. It is not. It is a qualitative question. It has nothing to do with time. The great V.I. Lenin said, as long as one of the people are alive, the struggle continues. History gives us examples here. We're not speaking rhetoric here. Every point we make, we go back with historic examples because we want to impose upon you the correct way to think and to see human nature. Because we know this capitalist system, it doesn't lie some of the time, it lies all of the time. Even when it tells the truth, it's a result of a lie. What happens? It happens. You can bring the biggest liar before us here and put him up. Must a man, must a woman tell the truth at all times, under all conditions, to all fellow men and all fellow women? They must say yes. While lying, they're telling the truth. It's the same thing as the capitalist system. It lies all of the time. They say that we must come to understand properly that we have a struggle against this system on every level. It will come to confuse us in every arena. It will come to make the real the unreal. It will come, oh, it's a system that must be fought. It will confuse us. Its presentation of history is clear. When it presents history to the people in the first instance, it presents history as something dead, something unalive, something in the past, and something made only by a great man or a great woman. This presentation completely demobilizes the people who receive this indoctrination. In the first instance, history is not dead. Only the recorded facts are. History is alive, and every individual on the face of the earth makes history. They make it either two ways, consciously or unconsciously, but they make history. If you are not conscious of the history you make, you will unconsciously make history. And if you're an oppressed people and you're not conscious of the history you make, then you will unconsciously make the history of your enemy. These are facts. And the fact that the African community worldwide doesn't have its history in its hands demonstrates how everywhere the capitalist system uses the system to beat the people down. We say history is made only by the people and only by the masses of the people. No one man, no one woman can make history. As a matter of fact, if you would just take a look at the history presented by the American capitalist system, if you would take a serious look, you would see its fallacy. Look, you take this George Washington, bad as he is, and you put him in the middle of Valley Forge by himself, surrounded by the British, can't do nothing. But if you take George Washington and you bring him and you put him in the middle of Valley Forge, surrounded by thousands of people who have the same ideas he has, determined to make them a reality, the situation changes drastically. What changes the situation? Not George Washington, but the thousands of nameless, faceless people who have an instinctive love of justice and come at the drop of a hat to spill their blood to advance humanity. It's the people and the people alone who make history. We said and we repeat that this instinctive love of justice is not qualitative. It will not be quelled by time. History gives us clear examples here. Here the Irish give us a sterling example, as sterling as the British pound used to be. Over 800 years ago, British imperialism marched into Ireland with the object of dominating the Irish, stealing their land, ripping off their labor. Today, 800 years later, the gallant Irish continue with their fight to put the British troops out of Ireland. This is 800 years of struggle. It is indeed only a stupid man like Margaret Thatcher who does not understand that if it takes another 800 years, the Irish will continue to fight and unite their country once forever. This aspect of instinctive love of justice must be properly comprehended. Africa gives us some brilliant examples here. Over 500 years ago, Portuguese colonialism marched into Africa with the object of dominating Angola, Mozambique, and Guinea-Bissau. Indeed, the Portuguese came to dominate Africa. If you didn't understand human nature, looking at the material reality, you would think, like the Portuguese thought when they first came there, that they would stay forever. Indeed, the Portuguese had big guns. We Africans had spears. Indeed, the Portuguese had fast ships. We Africans had dugout canoes, but we Africans had an instinctive love of justice, and for 500 years we struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled, and in the 1970s we destroyed Portuguese colonialism in Africa, and never again will it come back in that form. 500 years of struggle. It is important for us to point out to you that struggle is never ceasing. A cursory look at any aspect of history will show you serfs rising up against feudal lords, being beaten down, rising up again, being beaten down again, rising up again, being beaten down again, rising up again until they destroy feudalism. This is the true nature of history. The slavery in this country is such an example. Everywhere African slaves rose up continually in slave revolts, up again, knocked down, up again, knocked down, up again, knocked down, until they destroy slavery. This must be properly understood. The capitalist system we say and present in history seeks to stop us understanding its process and indeed comes to stifle our horizons. We know that the country is a racist country, and thus all of its institutions must be racist. The only way one can claim to be not a racist if one is struggling against racism in every aspect of life in this country. In elementary school, even high school, and even in some colleges, they still say Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. Of course, we all know it's not true. We understand the racist implication that you are not alive until some white man finds you. This, of course, helps to make the particular history of Europe become the universal history of the world, which it will never be. We say we understand the racist implication, but for us what is more important is the stifling effect it has upon our intellectual horizons. We are sure that as racist as the American institution is in education, and it is racist, everyone who goes through it has some vague understanding about Africa before 1492. Even if there were a number of cannibals running there. They have some vague understanding about Asia before 1492. Of course, of Europe, their understanding before 1492 is most precise. But of the United States of America before 1492, they have absolutely no understanding at all. The purposes are clear. Capitalism doesn't want anybody to look beyond 1492, because anyone looking before 1492, there will be no question, not even the slightest hesitation. It will become crystal clear that this land belongs to the Native Americans. It is their land. This statement has a tragic effect upon the minds of Africans. The biggest crime a human being can commit is to be ungrateful. When Africans came to this country, and this country was a hunting ground for Africans, the only place we found refuge was among the American Indians. It was them and them alone who protected us, intermarried with us, treated us with mutual respect, and defended us with their blood. You can never respect any people if you do not know their history, and do not know their history when they were free. If you know the origins of some people as slaves, as oppressed, you can never respect them. Consequently, if we are to respect the Indians, we have to know about their history before 1492. If you do not have this history, you have the history of the cowboys. Of course, it's the only history you have. If one would take a look at before 1492, one would have a lot of respect for these Indians, because they built a civilization that have astonished the world. I only give you one manifestation of their civilization, and this is the truth. Every racist missionary, pioneer, and historian has recorded that every time they went to an Indian village and they spent some time there, they were all had to remark the fact that Indians do not lie. I know it's difficult for you to comprehend a society in which nobody lies, starting with the president. I know. But these are not rhetorical statements. The facts are there. The United States government signed 370 treaties with the Indians. The Indians were illiterate. They didn't read. Their method of recording history was oral. Yet nowhere in the history books will you find the fact that the Indians violated one of these 370 treaties, yet everywhere you will find the American government violated every last one of them. They say history becomes a weapon in the hands of the enemy. It can demobilize the people. The people must come to understand that they are the makers of history and must come consciously to make history. We say it is the people and they are they alone who make history. We must not be confused. We must not have dates and facts. I'm surprised sometimes you ask even history majors something about the beginning of this country. Oh, that was George Washington, 1776, American Revolution. Some maybe will tell you, oh, he didn't tell a lie. When he cut down a cherry tree, he told the truth. Yes. Few can tell you that he's an Indian killer. He sure was an Indian. It's logical. The country was founded on killing Indians. He's the father. It's logical. He was an Indian killer. You should read your history. A serious Indian killer. You say that they tried to confuse us with the presentation of history. What they do in the case of Africans, we say, is pathetic when you look at the contradictions that they have. Africans in America have shed more blood out of proportion to their numbers defending America in wars that America fought than any other ethnic group in the country. Africans in America have shed more blood in America at the hands of racist groups such as the police and the Ku Klux Klan than any other group in the country. Blatant contradictions. Africans in America are more patriotic than any other ethnic group in America. They love America more than anybody else. Matter of fact, you come before them and talk against America, they want to whoop you. Yes. Africans in America are more abused in America than any other group in America. The only reason that we can have all these blatant contradictions is because we do not hold our history in our hands. It is held by the enemy, and he's confusing us with it. Therefore, when you come to struggle against this enemy, you say you struggle on every level. Frederick Douglass said, where there is no struggle, there is no progress. We must understand the depth of the statement. Progress is eternal. Therefore, struggle is eternal. Progress is eternal. Therefore, struggle is eternal. You must wipe out of your mind all these cobwebs that capitalism placed in your mind, letting you think that you must struggle, and then after a while in your life you come to relax and do nothing and just consume. This is stupidity. Animals cannot produce, they can only consume. Human beings produce and consume. Anytime a human being comes on the face of the earth and all they do is consume, they've lived the life of an animal, irrespective of the quality of material goods that they consume. As a matter of fact, the more they consume, the more like an animal they live. Human beings can both consume and produce. A conscious human being has the responsibility to know that they must produce more than they consume. Therefore, anytime you're looking to consume more than you produce, thinking you're clever, you're acting like an animal. You have a responsibility. Human beings have a purpose. Their purpose is to make life better, to advance life for future generations. We said that all people are born in debt, and to be ungrateful is the greatest crime. We today have reached an advancement in struggle thanks to those who preceded us in struggle. The position we arrived at today are thanks to those who came before us. They struggled for this. Many of them died for it. There's no way that we can repay them, but the debt must be repaid. We have no alternative but to repay it to future generations by assuring that they are on higher levels than we are. Say we must fight everywhere to kill this capitalist system and its demobilizing effect it has upon us. We are makers of history, and we must come to understand properly our role here. What they do with history in the case of the Africans, we say, is tragic. Malcolm X said it best. The tragedy, said he, of the American capitalist system is that it will teach a man to hate himself for no reason at all. This continent was habitated by those who came from Europe and those who came from Africa. All those who came from Europe voluntarily left Europe. Even the indentured servants had a choice: stay in jail or become an indentured servant in America. Everyone had a choice, and every European getting on the boat thought, however they decided in their minds, that they would have a better life for themselves and for their future generations. That is, it was a conscious step taken on their part, and they consciously left Europe, either fleeing jails or coming away from religious intolerance, whatever. No African who came to America left there voluntarily, and Africans came to America through the worst Holocaust that humanity has seen. Not only did they come to America in the worst Holocaust, they're still living in Holocaust in America. We know that all men are created equally. Anyone talking this nonsense we don't listen to. All men are created equal. There's no discussion here. Thus, in the face of the same realities, there should be the same response. How is it possible that these Europeans who left Europe voluntarily, turning their backs on it for whatever reasons, coming to America, can think fondly of Europe, return to Europe, hold it in fond memories, and these Africans who did not run away from anything in Africa, were dragged out of Africa against their will, came through Holocaust, still living in Holocaust. When you speak to them about Africa, they most positively will affirm to you, I ain't no African. First, the capitalist system makes you stupid, and then it makes you arrogant in your stupidity. The only reason why these Africans are ashamed of Africa is because they are oppressed by imperialism. And you must come to know seriously the weight of the oppression here. We want to give some examples of Africa's contributions to world humanity. Our purpose is clear. We do not think that Africans here can be filled with pride just from hearing a lecture for a couple of minutes. On the contrary, the only way you can get pride in Africa is by having knowledge of Africa. And the more knowledge you have in Africa, the more pride you have of Africa. And the more pride you have in Africa, the more you want to know about Africa. It's a complete circle. We say, in fact, any man, any woman who doesn't appreciate Africa, any man, any woman having contempt and a racist attitude towards Africa is a stupid man and a stupid woman who knows nothing of world history. We did not say African history. We said world history, because any man, any woman having any understanding of world history must be appreciative to Africa for her many contributions in every aspect of world history. We know there's no such thing as an inferior society or a superior society. All societies produce the same life-sustaining institutions. It is only the form that is different. Every society produces dance. Every society produces music. Every society produces a way of recording history. Every society produces a way of training the young. Every society produces culture. Every society produces religion. Every society produces a way of defending itself. Every society produces a way of perpetuating itself. Every society produces the same life-sustaining institutions in essence. It's only the form that's different. And it's here that capitalism will come to wreak havoc with our minds. It will have us concentrating on the form and leave the essence alone. Indeed, Martin Luther King was constantly rapping the country for this. He would say over and over again, the trouble with America is that it doesn't judge a man by the content of his character, but by the color of his skin. Everywhere. As a matter of fact, this judging people by the form and judging things by the form can reach such ludicrous heights that in America they can get a bunch of women, walk them across the stage and look at them and say, this one will represent America. Just on form. We say every society produces religion. Every society. There's not one society we've found that have not produced religion. And all these religions are equal. In essence, they're the same. All religions come to impose moral obligation upon man and woman. Religions have but one fundamental purpose. Their purpose is to impose moral obligation upon man and woman. Even those of us who are atheists must come to respect religion, because everywhere we find it representing the aspirations of the masses of the people. Even those of us who do not like religions must come to be glad they are there, because they impose moral obligation upon man and woman. Could you imagine what Bush would be like if he wasn't religious? When the Europeans, imperialism invaded this continent, the Indians had a religion. Because the form of that religion was different, it was not respected by European Christianity and was crushed. But it is clear that when one were to speak of religious people, the Indians were far more religious than the European invaders to the continent. all religious people must respect the religions of all other religious people. Anytime a man or woman who's religious is content in another religion, they are not a religious person. We say religions everywhere to be found. We would like to highlight some of Africa's contributions to world civilization in the arena of religion. We are not speaking here of Africa's own internal religions, just those which have come to affect the world. Of course, if you will go to your library, and you know one thing I must tell you about American imperialism, they really don't worry about y'all. They even put the books in the library. They know y'all won't even go read them. You know, in other countries they hide it. This is true. Let me just tell you one little thing before I get off. You know, I live in Guinea, and I've been living there for a long time. And once there was this white youth from America who came there working at the UN, and he was gung-ho American. And so he used to come to my house all the time to try to fight to protect America. So once he came to my house, we're having dinner with a group of people born in Guinea. And he finally got his chance. He said, you know, this country which you say you love so much is a dictatorial country. I said, is it? He said, yes. He said, you know, you tell your citizens not to go to the American embassy. He said, don't you? I said, yes, that's true. We tell them not to go. He said, why? I said, because if they go, they might get in trouble. So there's no need for them to get in trouble. There's nothing there for them. So he looked at the people around the table. He said, you see this? In our country, in America, we don't do this. Isn't that true? I said, he's right. But ask him, how many people in America go to the Soviet Union's embassy in Washington, D.C.? He said, none of them. I said, that's right. And they're not even told not to go. They have all these books. They will have you think that communism is bad. There are books by Marx. You say communism is bad, you won't go and read one. They don't have to worry about you. If you go in your library, you will find a book entitled The Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is the incorrect translation for the book. It should probably be called, and I'm not an Egyptologist, it should probably be called something like the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth. But the anthropologists, coming forth by day and night, thank you. Because the anthropologists who found it by the tombs, and they thought it was the Book of the Dead. This book was compiled over 7,000 years ago. It's in your library here. This book was given to the world by Africa. It's the first recorded sacred book in the world. We didn't say it's the first sacred book in the world. We said the first recorded sacred book in the world. It was Africa that gave monotheism, belief in one God, to the world. And when Africa gave monotheism, belief in one God, to the world, the rest of the world was not practicing or thinking about monotheism. The religion of Judaism, which is a religion, chronologically speaking, that points out the belief in one God, was given to the world by Africa. Of course, everywhere Africa is held up in contempt. Racist systems everywhere try to cover this contempt. And one of these systems heaping contempt on Africa is none other than Zionism. One must not make any confusion between Zionism and Judaism. They are diametrically opposed to each other. As the Jews, the Orthodox Jews say in Brooklyn, if you're a Jew, you cannot be a Zionist. And if you're a Zionist, you cannot be a Jew. This must be properly understood. The first Jews in the world were Africans. Of course, this is not a rhetorical statement. I give you some more books. Listen, especially for these Africans, let me tell you, you know, we're the best dancers in the country. And we spend all our time dancing. We're the worst readers in the country, and we spend no time reading. So we must read. So I'm giving you a whole lot of books tonight. And I tell you, a man in Africa once told me, he said, you can give your son a house, fire can burn it up. He said, you can give your son money, somebody can steal it. But once you put something in his head, nothing can take it out. The man I will mention, you know, his name is Sigmund Freud. I'm sure you've heard of him. But I'm willing to bet you never heard of the last book he wrote, entitled Moses and Monotheism. It's the last book he wrote, Sigmund Freud. And even the conditions under which he wrote this book is important. Sigmund Freud was a Jew, and he was living in Austria in 1939 when he began to write the book. The Nazis were advancing. Hitler was coming. And even though Hitler was coming, Sigmund Freud felt the book was important enough for him to risk his life collecting his notes until later he was able to flee to England, where he finished the book before he died. It's in your library here. If you will look at this book, you will see that Mr. Freud, using archaeological, historical, and psychoanalysis proofs, come to show us that Moses was nothing other than an African. Continuing in the book, Freud comes to show us that the early priests of the religion were nothing other than Africans. Thus we know that Africans were the first Jews. We do not let Zionism confuse us. There's no such thing as a Jewish people. There are people who adhere to the Jewish religion. Because when we were Africans and we got Judaism, we didn't stop becoming Africans and became Jewish people. We were just Africans who happened to be Jews, just like the Africans who happened to be Christians, just like the Africans who happened to be Muslims, just like the Africans who happened to be non-believers. Consequently, for us, there's no such thing. Zionism is an unjust system. It's illegal, it's immoral, it's racist, and consequently, it's doomed to its destruction. So in no way must it confuse us, and they will try to confuse you. Oh, they will try to confuse you. One even told me, Zionism is a liberation movement. Well, Africa knows a little bit about this one. Liberation movements usually fight against imperialism. Zionism got the state in collusion with British imperialism. You don't collude with imperialism. If you're a liberation movement, you fight against it. Zionism is nothing but an outpost in the Middle East, stupidly thinking with their arrogance that they can stop with their right hand the liberation movement in Africa and with their left hand the liberation movement in Asia. They're going to get crushed from both sides in the middle. This is clear. Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. Judaism was given to the world by Africans thousands of years ago. Zionism found its political organizations in Europe in 1897, and its founder was a man called Theodor Herzl, spelled H-E-R-Z-L. You must know about Mr. Herzl. You know everything affects everything. You mustn't think Zionism affects us. We Africans have done more to build this country than any other ethnic group in the country. And all the tax dollars that we give, all the rape that they've taken off of our labor, the money goes to Israel, none of it goes to Africa. And the Israeli takes this money, sends guns to Africa, in South Africa, bombs us in Egypt, invades us in Uganda, and invades our territory in Tunisia with our tax dollars. There must be some serious discussion here. This man Herzl, he writes many books, but two I want to commend to you. One is called The Jewish State, outlining for you how he intends to find it, and the second is his diary. I only want to point out his diary here for a minute. In his diary, Mr. Herzl tells us that he's an atheist. Now, you must understand what an atheist is. An atheist is not someone who doesn't believe in God. An atheist is someone who makes the affirmative statement that God does not exist. This is Mr. Herzl's contribution. So Mr. Herzl is an atheist, and listen to this. He's an atheist, and he tells us because the justification for the state of Israel is that God gave them the state. Now, how a man who says God does not exist can set out to find the state that God gave to his chosen people, I still have not yet comprehended. Matter of fact, if he's not Satan in disguise, the Pope must be a socialist. Zionism must not confuse you. America is a vicious system that controls and supports every vicious system in the world. Anytime you find a dictatorial regime, you don't have to look far. Just look right behind it, you'll find American bayonets holding it up. Zionism has America so afraid that when the state of Israel says jump, Americans ask how high. Zionism must not be confused. There are many Jews who are anti-Zionist. They will let you think that all Jews are Zionists, but they're not. America gives unconditional support to the state of Israel. We who are conscious must give unconditional support to the Palestine Liberation Organization. The solution to Zionism must be properly understood. There is intolerance against Judaism throughout the world, and especially in Europe, where religious intolerance is a phenomenon. We must not be confused. In order to stop Zionism, we must ensure tolerance of Judaism, and where force is necessary, we must use it to ensure such tolerance. Africans themselves cannot get confused. We gave Judaism to the world, therefore we can never be anti-Judaic. Never. Never. A conscious African cannot be. And if you know anything about these Africans, they are so religious that anybody trying to be anti-religious who represents them, they will stone them. Therefore, no way can Africans be anti-Judaic, not a conscious one. You must not get confused with this term anti-Semitic. If you will go and you will look properly in the dictionary, you will see the word Semite is a scientific word with biological specifications. The leaders in Israel are not Semites, they are Cossacoids. Yasser Arafat is a Semite. The Palestinians are Semitic. Thus, when I support Arafat, when I support Palestine, I cannot be anti-Semitic. It is Zionism which is against Palestinians. It is Zionism which is anti-Semitic. I'm not confused. Africa's contributions to Christianity are outstanding. We want to pause a little because these Africans in America want to have us believe that they are Christians. And do you know that as a people, we are more enthusiastic about the religious aspect of our life than we are about any other aspect of our life? I mean, if I could collect the energy given off by my people on Sunday morning in churches, if I could collect it and direct it against the enemy, we would have been freed since yesterday. It's our church. You know, these Africans love it now. We say capitalism makes you lazy. Capitalism makes you intellectually lazy. It teaches you to regurgitate, not to think. As a matter of fact, that's how they check your intelligence, by multiple choice. And they have A, B, C, D, E. He says, none of the above, don't think about it. No thinking process here, just regurgitating. You mustn't get confused. There's no thinking process here at all. What they want to do is to make the people lazy, and the effects work. I'm willing to bet you that 97% of the Christians in this country, I'm speaking about the African community, that's the one I know, I'm willing to bet you 97% of them, those who are Christians, who can read and write, have never read the Bible from cover to cover. And I'm willing to bet you that before they die and go home and see their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they ain't got the slightest intentions of reading it from cover to cover. And they tell you that God is more important to them than anything else in the world. They're carrying the Bible on their arm every Sunday to church, but reading from cover to cover, they will not think about it. The Chinese say if you make a mistake, and you know it's a mistake, and you don't correct the mistake, you've made your second mistake. If there are Christians here of any race, and you can read and write, and you have not read your Bible, you have made a mistake. You need to correct that mistake. Not only do you need to read your Bible, but any Christian should read every religious book, not just the Bible. They should read something about these theories. You say, but Christianity is terrible. If these Africans in America who call themselves Christians would read the Bible, they would be proud to be Africans. So when I find an African who's a Christian, who's ashamed of Africa, I know he ain't a Christian. Oh, it's very simple. I'm not even confused about it. Matter of fact, I said the capitalist system will make you stupid and arrogant in your stupidity. The other day I met one of these stupid ones. He told me he was a Christian. You know, so I said, you're a Christian? So yes. Have you read the Bible from cover to cover? He said, no. So I asked him, I said, can you read? He said, oh, I'm the best reader in my class. When I was in 5th grade, I was reading 7th grade. And I said, you haven't read the Bible from cover to cover? He said, no. I laughed. He got upset, you know, but I'm a revolutionary. Truth doesn't quiver before lies. It crushes lies without pity and without mercy. I laugh louder. You know what he said? Let me tell you something, Kwame Ture. You don't have to be a Christian to read the Bible. I clapped. You're correct. You can be a Christian and not read the Bible. But if you are a Christian and you can read and you don't read the Bible, you're a stupid Christian. We say any African reading the Bible would have to be proud to be Christian because of the overwhelming contributions that Africa made to the Christian religion. When Jesus Christ was in trouble and everybody was seeking to kill him, it was to Africa he went for refuge. It was Africa that protected him in his early life. It was in Africa that he grew up physically, spiritually, and intellectually, preparing himself for his life and his later works. The first country mentioned in the Bible, Genesis 2, verse 13, is Ethiopia. Depending upon your version of the Bible, this Ethiopia can be called Cush, spelled K-U-S-H or C-U-S-H. Genesis 2, verse 13. If you will go to any authoritative source, you will see Cush, whether with a C or a K, is the ancient name for Ethiopia. Genesis 2, verse 13. If you will read through the Old Testament, Europe is not mentioned by name at all in the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, Europe doesn't come until the New Testament, near the end of the Bible, by Revelations. These are facts. The first church in the world came out of Africa. The first monastery in the world came out of Africa. The very intellectual development of the church came out of Alexandria, which is in Egypt, which still is in Africa. Everywhere the contributions everywhere the contributions that Africa has made to Christianity are outstanding, and yet Africans who are Christians know absolutely nothing about it. Not only do they do nothing about it, this very Christianity is turned against them. I go all over the world. I will go into an African church in Africa, in the Caribbean, in South, Central America, North America. 95% of them, when I walk into them, I will see facing me a picture of a white Jesus replete with blonde hair and blue eyes. We say capitalism will direct the people's energies towards frivolity. I am certain that there are Africans here, students, who are members of fraternities and sororities, and at the same time Christians. I'm willing to bet you that 99.99999% of them know better the history of the fraternity and the sorority than they do of Christianity. I am sure there are brothers and sisters here who are not members of fraternities or sororities who call themselves Christians. I'm willing to bet you they know more about the life and history of movie stars than they do of the life and history of Jesus Christ. Indeed, anytime I walk into one of these churches and see a white Jesus in anybody's church, I pity these Christians. Because obviously they know nothing of the history of Christianity or the life of Jesus Christ. Anyone knowing anything of the life of Jesus Christ knows that Jesus Christ never saw Europe. He never put his foot in it. The religion of Christianity was not spread to Europe by Christ, nor by the disciples. It was spread by the apostles who came long after the disciples. A correct look at Christianity will show you that it took 400 years after the death of Jesus Christ to establish itself in Europe. These are facts. But everywhere you go, they'll have this white Jesus. We're not here to quibble about the color of Jesus. That's not our task. But the statement we make is a correct statement. Jesus Christ could be just about any color, but the one color he definitely could not be is the color they always paint him. As a matter of fact, if these Christians will do the slightest research, they will find out that this white Jesus, replete with blonde hair and blue eyes, is nothing other than the uncle of the artist who painted the picture. These are facts for all to see. So we want to tell you that when you fight against capitalism, the pigs are in the church. They're confusing you everywhere. Could you imagine the debilitating effect it has upon the minds of us bowing down before a white Jesus? Some carrying his picture on keychains. Some kissing his picture every night. It has a debilitating effect. It must be a fact. Christians have to rise up and struggle against imperialism. They must rise up and struggle against European capitalism. Either Jesus Christ is painted all colors or he's painted no color. And if you stick to the description in the Bible, it's even more tragic. But we'll let you Christians go find it for yourself. You must read your Bible. Africa's contributions to Islam were outstanding. When the Prophet Muhammad was trying to preach his just principles in Mecca, the feudal lords were opposed to him. They were trying everywhere to strike him down. Before he could coalesce his forces, they attacked him. He had to retreat. In retreating, he gave orders to his disciples. Go to Africa, he said. Following the orders of the Prophet, the disciples went to Ethiopia. The feudal lords of Mecca had relationships with Ethiopia, the oldest state in the world. They had political, economic, and diplomatic relationships. When they arrived in Ethiopia, they asked the Ethiopians to hand over the disciples so we can execute them. The Ethiopians refused. Not only did they refuse, they protected the disciples, and when the prophet had been called to Medina by people looking for just prophet, the Ethiopians themselves conducted the disciples to rejoin the prophet, where once having rejoined him, they could establish a firm base and rapidly spread Islam throughout the world. We have, just in passing, given 5 of Africa's great contributions to world civilization in the arena of religion. The first recorded sacred book in the world, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, written 7,000 years ago, was given to the world by Africa. If you will look at this book, read the Torah, read the Quran, read the Bible, you will find all of them can trace their sources back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Monotheism, belief in one God, was given to the world by Africa. Judaism was given to the world by Africa. Christianity was stabilized for the world by Africa, and Islam was saved at a time of peril for the world by Africa. Which man, which woman, African or non-African, understanding these facts would not be appreciative of Africa? Any man, any woman who has any disrespect for Africa is an ignorant man and an ignorant woman. Thus, when you find Africans who are ashamed of Africa, do not be angry with them. Stimulate them to want to know about Africa. Stimulate them to want to know about Africa, because we promise you, once they come to know about Africa, they will be so proud to be Africans that they will in no way disguise themselves, so everyone will know them when they see them. They are Africans. I organized for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Ours is a revolutionary party. We are not trying to integrate in the American capitalist system. We're out to destroy it. We know the Democratic Party is our enemy. We see it every day, and more clearly today than in the past. Africans in this country have more elected officials than any other ethnic group in the country. We have over 300 mayors, and these are mayors of the biggest cities in this country, not just little cities: New York, Newark, Philadelphia, Chicago, Washington, Detroit, Gary, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Birmingham, etc., etc. We have some 20-odd Congress people. We have some 5,600 local officials. We have more elected officials than any other ethnic group in the Democratic Party, and we have no power at all in the party. Brother Jesse Jackson is a beautiful brother with a lot of noise, but we don't need noise, we need power. You only get political power from the organized masses. Political power has but one legitimate source: the organized masses. We must come and look carefully. We, the All African People's Revolutionary Parties, are workers for our people. We're not talkers for our people. We are workers. We are action-making people, and it's from our action that we speak. That's why we do not confuse the issue. We understand that there's but one solution to our people's problem, one solution. That solution is Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. We are socialists, and we are not confused by capitalism above all. We said the capitalist system in the CIA does not lie some of the time, it lies all of the time. Certainly the CIA lies all the time, whether they occupy the position of envoy to China or president of the United States. Mr. Bush is a liar. He certainly is. I saw him lying before the American people just the other night. Mr. Bush said, "Oh, communism is crumbling. It's about over." Bush works for the CIA. He knows there's no communist state in the world. The country to which America directs most of its hatred is called Russia. They call it Russia. The correct title is the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The people in the Soviet Union tell the world they want to be communists. That's what they say they're fighting for. So we should be assured that as soon as they become communists, they shall be the first to change their name from the USSR to the USCR, the Union of Soviet Communist Republics. Until this is done, they are not communists. This great man to the south of this country, this fighter for international justice, this man by the name of Fidel Castro, he does not claim communism, he claims socialism in Cuba. Go to what they call North Korea in America, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea, Kim Il-sung. They do not claim communism, they claim socialism. Go to Vietnam, socialism. Go to China, socialism. Go to Tanzania, socialism. There is no state in the world claiming communism. But Bush knows that the people in America do not think, they only react to stimuli, and in the act of reacting, they think they're thinking. So Bush says to them, communism is crumbling. Did you hear communism is crumbling? What is it? It's crumbling. And they thought, you know. Yes. There are only two economic systems in the world: capitalism or socialism leading to communism. There are only two economic systems in the world: capitalism or socialism. And there can only be two, because every economic system must answer one fundamental question: who will own and control the wealth of the country? Who will own and control the means of production? The question can only be answered two ways: either a few will own or everybody will own. It's as simple as that. One must not be confused. The issue is clear. In a capitalist system, a few people own everything, and their owning it makes everybody else work for them. They exploit the people and get the profit. In a socialist system, everybody owns everything. Now, you know, you've got a lot of struggle against capitalism. I tell you, you've got to fight these pigs on every level. Tomorrow, your bourgeois scholars here in the League of Capitalist Pay will tell you, oh, last night Kwame Ture said that you should build a socialist system, and under socialism there's no exploitation of one by the other, and we will live happily after. He will say, oh, this is utopian. When he says utopian, you think he's talking about me or socialism. No, he's talking about you. What he is saying is that man and woman cannot build a society in which there is no exploitation of one by the other. You can never tell the people what they cannot do. And if one knows anything about history, there's nothing the people will not do for their freedom. Indeed, if the people can go to the moon, then the people can establish a society free of exploitation where justice is for everyone. Not only this, but history demonstrates to us, unless there is true equality and justice, there's no need to begin building civilizations, because the people will rise up and fight against the injustice and destroy that which is built through warfare. Thus, the first instance for those of us seriously concerned with the reconstruction of any society must be a base of total equality. We say socialism is the only just economic system. We're not confused by capitalism. They've been having a heyday with people who understand nothing, wreaking havoc on the minds of people in America. They're talking about, oh, socialism is crumbling. It's tumbling down everywhere. You never judge a system by its adherents. You always judge a system by its principles. Who in this room judges Christianity by Christians? Raise your hand. If Christianity were judged by Christians, it has crumbled since the time of Judas. And if Judas didn't finish it, Peter helped. And if he didn't finish it, the popes have done a lot to help. And ordinary Christians, they give their little bit too. If Christianity hasn't crumbled because of the betrayal of Christians, why does socialism crumble? Because of the betrayal of socialists. No matter how many socialists betray socialism, the principles remain intact. If Christianity's been around for thousands of years, betrayed by Judas, betrayed by Peter, betrayed by popes, and it's still intact, why do you not think that socialism, which has only been around for less than 100 years, betrayed by others, cannot also remain intact? The principles of socialism are intact, and those of us who are socialists will never be pushed out of this position, not by capitalism. Not only is socialism coming to Africa, but it's coming to the entire world, and it's coming to America. You don't let this capitalist press confuse you. The people are less conscious. No, people are less conscious. Throughout the 70s, they wreaked havoc on the people. Oh, it's a me generation. Nobody cares about nothing. This press is terrible. It's a fighting arm of this capitalist. I mean, they're a fighting arm. If you listen to them, they will confuse you. How can you tell anybody that people get less conscious? People get more conscious. Consciousness is based on experience, and the people will experience every day. They actually have some people believing that the people in the 90s are less conscious than those in the 60s. No one sitting in this room can be less conscious. Everyone sitting in the room is more conscious even of the food that you eat today. You're more conscious of the ecology. You're more conscious of the amenities necessary for the handicapped. You're more conscious of the necessity of women to struggle against women's oppression. Everywhere you're more conscious on every level. And not only are the people more conscious, the conditions, the objective conditions are worse. America is more ripe for revolution today than it was in the 60s. We are revolutionaries. We're not afraid of the America. We're not afraid of anything. The only thing we are afraid of is being irresponsible to our people. And the job of capitalism is to make you irresponsible to your people. They will have you so tied up with your family and your children that you think you're doing something. Your family and your children be damned. The people are more important than any family. Just quantitatively speaking, if all the people wiped out and your family is left, you're in trouble. But if your family is wiped out and humanity is left, nobody's in trouble. The people are always more important. They will try to let you think that you're doing your thing just thinking about yourself. Don't get confused. Human beings are socialized by human beings. None of us can make it by ourselves. None of us. We wouldn't even know how to talk. Capitalism, we said, is an enemy of the people, and our party's not afraid of it. We're not the FBI. We're not afraid of the FBI. I've never been afraid of the FBI. Matter of fact, you're just afraid of it if you don't know it, but once you're working with it, you know it. And the FBI, they are stupid. I mean, they really are stupid. You know, if they had any integrity, these pigs would resign out of the illness. They're so incompetent. Oh, look, I'm not talking rhetoric. Look, any of you ever heard of the name Patricia Hertz? You know, Patricia Hertz was a white woman who in the 1960s was born in the aristocracy. I mean, she was born in blue blood, sure enough, capitalist. She wasn't no little white working class girl that knew the community. No, she was in chauffeur-driven cars all her life. And she all of a sudden, for whatever reason, joined what they call a liberation movement in California called the Symbionese Liberation Movement. And they used to commit violent acts against the state. They used to rob banks, shoot policemen and stuff like that. And everywhere the FBI was saying, we're going to get Patricia Hertz. They had pictures everywhere. We almost got her. We're on her tail now. We're smelling her. We're going to catch her. And do you know the only time the pigs caught her was when she gave herself up? And they called themselves, look at them. Oh, listen, they're useless. I'm telling you, I know them. Yeah, I'm telling you, you know. And listen, how many of you heard of the Black Panther Party? How many of you heard of Assata Shakur? And let me tell you something. If you have not heard of Assata Shakur, you have not heard of the Black Panther Party. The television will not give you press. I know, I saw Eyes on the Prize. I asked the man, you saw Eyes on the Prize here? They talk about Black Panther? He said, yeah. I said, who was on there? He said, oh, Huey, Bobby. Oh, I said, I see. They tell you about all the ones who stopped fighting. They tell you about the ones who are still fighting. So you think the Black Panther Party is dead. But there are people who are Black Panthers alive today and fighting. One of them is a brother called Geronimo Pratt. And if you think Mandela been in jail for 25 years, Geronimo Pratt been in jail in America for 20 years. And he's been in jail because of no other reason than his political beliefs. He was a member of the Black Panther Party. And not only has he been in jail for 20 years, but he's stronger today than he was 20 years ago. And he gets stronger in revolution every day. That's why you will never hear his name, not even on Eyes on the Prize. And they have campaigns for him everywhere. The Black Panther Party, like every group in the 60s, split. One going to the right and the others going to the left. One becoming more reactionary, one becoming more revolutionary. Those who became more revolutionary transformed themselves to what is known as the Black Liberation Army. And the Black Liberation Army is still alive, and they're rough. Oh, the police are scared of them. They shoot the racist police between the eyes. They roll hand grenades onto their police cars. They do it. Just because the press doesn't say it, don't you think that's not happening? The leader of the group is a woman by the name of Assata Shakur. Assata-Shakur. She has a book. It's an autobiography. You should read it because she's alive today. And you know, history, I tell you, is not dead. It's something alive. Now, Assata, she was head of the Black Liberation Army. And the FBI, they had her on the 10 most wanted list. I mean, they were looking for her everywhere. And they were talking about how they're going to get her. And while they were looking for her, she was in New York giving orders to the army, and they were dealing blows to these pigs. I mean, beating them. She has a book. She'll tell you how she did it. Now, she made a mistake, and in the book she says it was a mistake. She took a trip down the New Jersey Turnpike during the day. A police officer, for one reason or the other, stopped him, and after the altercation, the police was dead, her husband was killed, she was wounded, and the third member got away. The FBI had a heyday. Oh, they were happy. They caught her. They had television press every day, all the time. We got her. We're going to crush the Black Liberation Army. We've got the head of the Black Liberation Army. We've got the soul of the Black Liberation Army. Oh, and you know, they tortured her. You know, those pigs tortured her. You understand? And they had her in jail and put her around the security and said that they won't keep her. They gave her, I think, about 399 years sentences. Do you know the Black Liberation Army broke into the jail in New Jersey, broke Assata out, took her to Cuba, where she now is today, and the FBI can't even tell how she got out the jail. are facts. Now, people who don't know the FBI can't think about the FBI. All you can think about is what you see on TV. And on TV, they always get the man. In Hollywood, everybody comes out the way they wanted to come out. But they don't get nobody. Did you all follow Marion Barry's case? Do you know the FBI, they said that they spent $43 million following Marion Barry for 10 years to catch him on a film taking 2 whiffs of a stick of cocaine. $43 million. And they're not ashamed to admit it. I tell you, they're so incompetent, it's not funny. So we're not afraid of them. Matter of fact, they're getting weaker every day. The people are more conscious of them. They can't pull the nonsense they used to pull before. You know, before how they pull, before they were rough, they come in the community, drop the FBI badge, and everybody's supposed to get scared. Now when they drop it, the people ask them, who you framing? Who you trying to frame? Because the people know all they've been doing is framing people. And as a matter of fact, it's because of this, it's more difficult for them to frame people today. They've been framing people. It was J. Edgar Hoover who framed the Honorable Marcus Garvey. It was Hoover who took him to jail. So when he was doing in the Black Panther Party, it was nothing new. If you knew the pigs, you would know it's nothing new. You must know the enemy. When you come to fight them, the FBI is weaker today, getting weaker every day. And the best way to make them weak is to make the people conscious of who they are, incompetent pigs. They are going to be destroyed. You see, you mustn't make the mistake Marion made. I told Marion, Marion used to be my boss in SNCC. He was the first chairman of SNCC. Marion was a rough brother, but I told him, I said, Marion, your mistake wasn't that you smoked coke. Your mistake was that you got weak on the enemy. You think that they liked you. You thought they were only following me. See, I know they want me because I want them. I want them, so I know they want me. You understand? That's clear. But most people think they don't want them. You mustn't be confused. Don't think it's just me they want. They want you too. Matter of fact, the only reason they want me is because of you. Don't let them fool you. No. You know, even the police now, when they stop you, they have boomerang mics. Anytime you see a police car, they can just flip on a switch and listen to anything you're saying in the car. Oh, you think it's just me they're following? Look out. The difference between me and you is that I know they're following me. The only difference, I know they're trying to get me, you understand? And I know that one day they might get me. I know it, you understand? But before they get me, I'm going to do everything possible to do everything to bring them down. Our party is a revolutionary party. Our party understands that the biggest problem our people face is that we are disorganized. It's our only problem. People who don't know anything about people will give us every other solution except this. I hear them give us every solution. We don't have leaders, we don't have this, we don't have that, but none of them say we don't have organization. And organization is the only problem we face. If you really love your people now, you must come and work for your people. If you really care about your people, you must work for your people. You cannot love in the abstract, just like you cannot think in the abstract. You must not let capitalism fool you. I'm sure if I asked you how many of you love the people, everybody's hand would go up. If I asked you how many of you are systematically on a daily basis working for the people, then the hands would go down. But you cannot say you love your people if you do not work for your people. Our people have to be organized. You must not be confused by capitalism. In the 60s, we were not organized. In the 60s, we were mobilized. And there's a difference between mobilization and organization. Our people are very easy to mobilize. As a matter of fact, that's the easiest thing for us to do because we have no internal dynamism. All of our actions are mobilizations, and not only that, mobilizations in reaction to enemy provocation. We will be at a university. We know the university is racist, but we'll try and deal with it as best we can until one day some little white racist student puts up some signs, a little bit too much. The students gather for 20 minutes, they yell and they scream, then they sit down. And they wait until the next racist attacks. The police shoot us everywhere in the cities. We sit. One day it's one too much. We get up, we make a little bit noise, we sit down until they shoot another one. This is an incorrect way for a people who want their liberation to proceed. A people who want to have liberation must have their own internal dynamism. It is they who must decide when to attack the enemy, where to attack the enemy, and for what purposes to attack the enemy. Until we come to have this internal dynamism, we will be just the way we are, waiting until they do it a little bit too much, then we rise up, make a lot of noise, and sit down. But they themselves are used to us. When they hit us, they say, oh, just back off. They'll make noise and sit down. And all they do is back off, we make noise, and sit down. We must not be confused. The 60s was mobilization, not organization. But we must learn from everything. If you see what we did to this country when we were mobilized, when we are organized, we will seize power without the slightest doubt. You can mobilize people usually easy around issues for a temporary time, but organization is permanent. Organization is permanent, and this is what we lack as a people, permanent organization. This is what we lack. All our enemies are organized. The Ku Klux Klan has been organized since 1883. They've been properly organized. Over 100 years ago, they've been organized, and they keep the same institution. Even the institution which came to fight against them, our oldest arm of fighting, the NAACP, which was organized to stop the Klan in getting rid of the anti-lynch law. They're not as old as the Klan and not as well organized as the Klan. We must come to be organized. We have to transform our community. And the only way you can be organized is by joining an organization or creating an organization. Our people have but one problem. 97% of the masses of our people do not belong to any organization fighting for the people. This is our only problem. This will only be changed by us and us alone. We say everywhere the history books try to confuse us. Not only are we the only ones, even when we change it by ourselves, they rob us of victories. Everywhere the enemy robs us of victories. If you go back to history, for us it's really tragic. Not only do the masses not make our history, but the one man who usually makes our history is not us, is a white man. They will tell you without the slightest equivocation in the textbooks, all the way up to college level, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Without the slightest equation. You know, people come to Abraham Lincoln, free. Thank you, Abraham. But if you would look at the material facts, you will see that Abraham Lincoln never freed the slaves. The war began in 1861. The South started the war, not the North. Abraham Lincoln didn't issue the Emancipation Proclamation until 1863, 2 years later. All the abolitionists were telling him to get rid of slavery. His generals, who didn't care about slavery, just wanted to win a war, kept telling him, abolish slavery. Emancipate the slaves. It was clear. The white South was winning the war. While the slaves didn't do combatant work, they did all the non-combatant work. They dug ditches. They prepared the food. They cleaned the uniforms. They took care of the sick. They even cleaned the guns. All the white South had to do was fight, and fight they did. And they were winning the war. Because in 1863, he was forced to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. When he issued it, everybody told him, let the slaves pick up the gun. Old Frederick Douglass wore out his feet going to tell Abraham Lincoln to let the slaves pick up the gun. He didn't sign the bill to let us pick up the gun until 1864. Why? Because the South was winning the war. And when he gave us the right to pick up the gun in 1864, within 1 year, the war was over. Nowhere is it credited with the slaves getting the war. No, not at all. The white Northerners were not looking for the slave masters, but me. I get a chance to kill that pig that's been messing with my mama. Give me the gun. It's the slaves who went after the slave masters. The Northern whites didn't go after them. They were just finding defensive positions, but the slaves wanted them. We have a hatred for injustice, and vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Good God, let me help you. Give me the gun. In the name of the Lord, yes. Nowhere is it, everywhere. And it goes on today, you know. It doesn't stop there. Even today, every time I pick up a newspaper, look at the television, they say about the clerk, the clerk, the clerk. The clerk didn't do nothing for Mandela. It's the blood of the masses of my people that forced him to release Mandela. They will steal victories from the people everywhere. But it's necessary for us to know that it is only the people who advance us. And for us Africans, it is clear. Even individual advancement in this country doesn't come as a result of individual worth or talent. It's a result of the blood of the masses of the people. Every individual who you see advance there, he didn't do it by himself. Even this Powell, Who's sitting up at the Pentagon, who Bush says is a soldier. Of course he's a soldier, but he didn't get there because he's a soldier. He got there as a concession to us to deceive us. And that's just what that pig is doing. The first thing he does is send our youth to Panama to kill other Africans' youth, and then he tells us, Bush didn't think of it, I thought of it. Look at you. All these positions arrived there through the blood of the people. Any mayor in this country didn't get there because they're good-looking, charming, intelligent. They got there because of the blood of the people. Our people make no advances in this country without the shedding of blood. There's no one sitting here who can give me one advance we've made without shedding our blood. Even to sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store, we got to shed our blood. To get on a bus and sit where we want to sit, even though we pay like everybody else, we must shed our blood. To get our children into school where everybody pays taxes, we must shed our blood. To get the vote just like everybody else gets when they come here, we must shed our blood. You can show me nowhere we advance as a people in this vicious system where we do not shed our blood. Logic must impose itself upon us. Since we must shed our blood to make reform, let us organize ourselves, shed blood one time, overthrow capitalism, and be free at last. We must organize the masses of our people. They are the only makers of history in this day, and they alone who advance us, not these individuals. As a matter of fact, these individuals, when they do not use the positions for the people, they've already betrayed the people. On every level. We're also speaking about students. You students know that these seats which you occupy through the blood of your people. That these seats belong to your people. The knowledge acquired here must be used for your people. Anytime you use it to advance yourself, you've already betrayed your people. We say you have to fight against capitalism on every level. Even in the general sense of knowledge, you must fight against it. This capitalist system is a pig system. It will make everything a commodity. It will make us human beings a commodity. Put our mothers on the auction blocks and sell it. It will come and take knowledge and make knowledge a commodity. Knowledge has but one purpose. Its purpose is to alleviate the sufferings of humanity. Knowledge has but one purpose. Its purpose is to alleviate the sufferings of humanity. Thus, even on the level of knowing it's for your people, you have to fight against capitalism, making it a commodity, because they will tell you that you must come to school, get knowledge, and then sell it on the marketplace to advance yourself. Of course, they come to confuse you, because to get knowledge, you got to pay for it. But don't think that to give it up, no, not for your people. It's your people who made it possible. You have but one purpose to use your knowledge, and that's to advance the sacred cause of your people's liberation struggle. We are sure that all people will be free. We know that we will all be free. For us, there's the slightest question. For us, the only way to be free is to be organized. We must be organized. Unless we're organized, we will not be able to move anywhere. In conclusion, I have to once more take out cobwebs. When you go, the press will tell you tomorrow, oh, you want to hear Kwame Ture? In the 1960s, he was young and crazy. Now he's older and crazier. Yes. Nothing wrong with that. Malcolm says extreme conditions must have extreme solutions. And the conditions are more extreme today than they were in the 60s. So I'm on the job. I'm not worried about them. They will tell you, when you speak, he's such an extremist. Everything for him is cut and dry. Everything is hot and cold. Everything is white and black. There's no middle ground. There's no gray area. He's just too extreme and radical. Don't let them confuse you. In the area of strategy and tactics, there's middle ground. There's gray area. I'm a revolutionary. I speak of freedom. I speak of justice. I speak of principles. And when one speaks of principles, there is no middle area. There is no gray area. Everything is cut and dry, hot or cold, white and black. There is no middle ground. You're students. You're on the test, either you cheat or you do not cheat. Where's the middle ground? You're students. Either you believe in God or you do not. There is no middle ground. And don't be confused. If you start doubting God, you have stopped believing in God. You're students. We say in principles there is no middle ground. If your people are oppressed and you are not working, trying to help liberate your people, by your very act of inactivity, you are against your people. There is no middle ground. We must come to understand it properly. Man said to me the other day, well, I'm not against my people. I don't work for the CIA. I don't do this. If your people are oppressed and you're not working to help liberate them, you are against your people. If your mother is being raped and you put your hands behind your back and say, I ain't got nothing to do with this, you're against your mother. If your people are being exploited and you're happily watching Dallas and Dynasty, you are against your people. It's as simple as that. That's the only way that you can come to really know about your people, love your people, is when you work for your people. We ask you to come and join our party, those Africans here, but listen, ours is a revolutionary party. When you come to join our party, we say, do you have 30 minutes a day for your people? If not, move on. You cannot say you love your people, nor do we think that we can solve this problem that we have on our hands unless we come as a group of people to concentrate our energies towards solving the problem. This problem that we face is so great that no one of us can solve it. Any one of us who truly tries to solve it will truly go crazy. This problem can only be solved by all of us. Thus, we have the responsibility to make all of us play their conscious role in our struggle. We ask you to join our party. We tell you it's a difficult party. When you go outside, you'll find a table outside there with one of our conscious sisters, some brothers there. If you're interested, you sign your name. They'll tell you a little bit about our party. When we'll have another meeting to explain it. But let me tell you something. You know, the capitalist system is a vicious system. They say, oh, you know, we went to hear Brother Kwame Ture. He talked about socialism. I ain't no socialist. No, 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 no. He talked about Africa. I ain't no African. La, 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 la. And so you walk out. But let me tell you, Brother Kwame Ture is going to tell you what he told you. He told you that our people will not be free until they're organized. And he told you you have to join an organization. And he told you if his organization is not the organization for you, then you better join an organization that's for you, because we have so many organizations. So if you don't belong to his organization, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, you should belong to the Nation of Islam. If you don't belong to the Nation of Islam, you should belong to the Black Liberation Army. If you don't belong to the Black Liberation Army, you should belong to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. If you don't belong to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, you should belong to the National Urban League. If you don't belong to the National Urban League, you should belong to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But if you truly care about your people, you will be in an organization working for your people. All those who hear crying about the problems we have in the community, oh, there's so much crime, there's so much drugs, tra-la-la, those are the ones who are doing nothing. Matter of fact, they're helping the enemy. Because the enemy is trying to make us think that we live in total insecurity so that we be holding on more to him. You understand? They get so confused that we want more police. We don't need more police. We need more organization in our community to stop the police. Malcolm X said it. I was there. Malcolm said at a rally one time in Harlem against police terrorism, he said, there's more crime in Harlem per block than in any other area of America. It's true. He said at the same time, there are more policemen per block in Harlem than in any other area in the country. He says, why do we have crime? Because the police bring the crime in the community. It's only someone but a fool who doesn't know the police are involved in drugs. You can take me to any city in this country, drop me there, and in 20 minutes I will show you where they sell crack or heroin. And usually the closer I get to the police stations, the closer I find the dropout boys. The police is not our problem is us. We are not organized. We do not know what's coming into our community. Who brings the drugs in? Not us. Who brings the guns in? Not us. We don't bring anything in. We're just totally powerless in our own communities. That's why they run havoc with them. Talking about the youth, we cannot do anything for the youth until we ourselves are first organized. Our youth are in the way they are because they have no examples, they have no organization. We leave them to the enemy to fill them with education, and then we yell at them. No man is born to be a criminal. No high school student is born to be a dropout. It's the society that gives them their education. It's the society that must be changed. Capitalism is going to be destroyed. Of that there isn't the slightest question. You can never stop the march of humanity forward. And humanity has come through a lot, and it will go through more to get where it's going to go. The human beings across the world are going to build a system where there's no exploitation of one by the other, so we can truly start eternal civilization. You must be a conscious part of this effort.